Hi, Ottawa Senators fans. My name is Keith Freeze. This video is a deviation from what I normally do, where I will do videos about the LA Kings, but I've had this idea in my mind for a little while, and I thought I would share it with you guys because it's appropriate for your team. But with the possibility that the Ottawa Senators are going to have a new arena downtown in the LeBreton Flats district, um, I will say that number one, that's a great opportunity for the team moving downtown. It's going to be a more centralized area for people to come to. But at the same time, anytime you get a new arena, that's always fun. And it gives you opportunities to do some fun things with the arena. And that's the point of this video, is that I've had a couple ideas over the years that I thought would be kind of cool to see. Now, I said it during the Ottawa Senators Kings preview game that I just posted yesterday, but if I wasn't an LA Kings fan, I would be an Ottawa Senators fan. And a big reason why is because of the original Ottawa Senators, the Silver Seven, as they were sometimes known as. It's just such a cool piece of history that, to me, when I look at that and I look at where the original six teams, knowing that the Ottawa Senators were the original dynasty team of the Stanley Cup, it's just incredible when you remember that the Ottawa Senators were so close to being a part of what we know as the original six. Anybody that's done their history on the NHL or any of the leagues that came before it, or any of the leagues that just popped up and went away, or whatever, the Challenge Cup days of the Stanley Cup, if you've done your history on that, you will know that the Ottawa Senators really were the class of the teams that were winning Stanley Cups. And at the time that they folded, there were the original six teams around. But prior to that, with the NHL or the NHA, whatever, there were more than six teams at one point. And so this whole idea of calling them the original six is they're not the only six teams, I guess, is the point. But Ottawa Senators fans know this because you've grown up hockey fans, regardless if it was the NHL Ottawa Senators or just fans of the game in general. And so to highlight the older Ottawa Senators and to give them a little bit of shine, the current Ottawa Senators are hanging banners in the rafters at their current arena that all have Stanley Cup champions with the various years that the original Ottawa Senators won those. Now, I personally don't like when teams do that because it wasn't your franchise that won those. In the same way that at the Videotron Center in Quebec, they're hanging up two Quebec Bulldogs Stanley Cup championship banners. Even if there was a new Quebec Bulldogs that played at the Videotron Center, those banners don't carry over from the past. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. Now, I still think that those teams or those moments should be highlighted. I just don't think that hanging those banners is the right way to go about it. But what I would like to do is, in their new plaza, I would like to put up what you're seeing on screen now. I would like to erect a statue outside that has a curved wall behind it, and the statue would be of Fred Cyclone Taylor, who was only with the original Senators for 2 years, but for that time period, if you've done your history, you will know that Fred Cyclone Taylor was the best hockey player of his generation. And at the same time, at one point, if you took the averages of how much he was making per game, I think at the time they only played a 10-game season. But if you took the average of how much he was making per game and you compared it with a baseball regular season amount of games, I believe Fred Cyclone Taylor was the highest paid athlete, not just hockey player, but the highest paid athlete of the time. Any sport that you can think of. So Fred Cyclone Taylor was the man, and he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. In fact, there are 37 original Ottawa Senators that are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So on this wall, it would have on the front the picture of the 1905 Ottawa Senators. There's an iconic photo, and there's some great players in that, particularly One Eye McGee. And so it's just a great picture. It's an iconic picture. And I would have that on the wall, and then having Cyclone Taylor's statue in front of it. So the idea would be that Cyclone Taylor wasn't part of that 1905 team, but he did join the Ottawa Senators 3 years later. And it's just encompassing that time period into one area. I don't think that there has to be one statue over on this side of the plaza and then another one all the way over there and another one over there. It just can be kind of centralized and put together. And I think this is a good way of doing it. So having Cyclone Taylor as the statue, because he was kind of remembered as more like the individual, even though he was on the Senators, we kind of remember him as Fred Cyclone Taylor, an individual. The Ottawa Senators, the Silver Seven, this picture being the team. So it all kind of like blends together. And then on the back side of the wall, I would put the 11 Stanley Cup champion teams with the rosters listed for that. So imagine that wall is maybe made of marble or some kind of, a nice concrete finish, something like that. And these names would be nicely engraved into that wall. Additionally, on the wall, you could list the 37 Hall of Famers from the original Ottawa Senators that are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And this would be your tribute to the original Ottawa Senators instead of hanging up the banners inside. We're going to take down the banners inside. We're going to give you this memorial instead. Now, the whole point of doing this, too, is that think of it this way. Inside the building is where the new Ottawa Senators play. Outside is just the city of Ottawa. So it's kind of saying like this is part of the city's history. So we're putting that outside. We're giving that back to the city. And so it works on a couple different levels, but in particular, if you're a fan going to the game and you see this statue or you see the memorial, you're going to take a picture in front of it. And that's kind of cool, as opposed to you can't go up in the rafters and take a selfie next to the banners, So this is giving back to the city and the patrons of that city. Okay. So there's that part. And the second part that I'll say, and I might get a lot of flack for this one, because I understand that when you retire a player's number, you make a banner and you go hang it up. So if they still want to make the banners and they want to hang them up, hey, fine. You have no argument from me. But just in terms of doing something a little different, one of the things that you might see in the NFL or with Major League Baseball is that instead of hanging up a banner with the player's number on it, they'll make these circular cutouts and they'll align them throughout the stadium. And for the shape that the current Ottawa Senators have with that kind of circular thing with the floral kind of design inside, I just thought that was a great early sort of foundational piece to do the same thing that these baseball stadiums and football stadiums do. I get that hockey isn't football. It's not baseball. I understand it. Okay. Hanging banners is a huge honor. So if you want to continue to do that, that's great. I just saw that these shapes were so perfect for doing that. So here is an example on screen that I made of what that might look like in terms of each one being taken a shape. So there are currently 4 numbers retired by the Ottawa Senators. One of them, number 8, dating back to the original Ottawa Senators. He was the last piece. Finnegan was the last piece of the 2000 or the 1927 Stanley Cup champions who was still alive at the time that the Ottawa Senators became a franchise, this Ottawa Senators franchise, and he kind of bridged the gap between both of those phases. So they retired his number. So I'm totally okay with that because it's this team making a decision to retire a number for this organization. I'm a little bit more okay with that than I am hanging 11 Stanley Cup championship banners that, you know, frankly, this organization never won. So I'm okay with still having that number retired. So they have 8, 4, 11, and 25 retired, and I'm including 65. Now, the reason why I'm including 65 is not necessarily that they're going to retire Erik Karlsson's number. I'm just trying to put it there to show that there could be growth in the future to have more players have their numbers retired, which will be inevitably true. Okay. From the forums that I've read, I think people were like the Ottawa Senators fans that I read from on various forums was that they thought that Erik Karlsson's number would be retired before Jason Spezza's number was retired. And the fact that Batherson is wearing 19, which was Spezza's number, that tells me that the Ottawa Senators may not retire Jason Spezza's number. He might just go to the Ring of Honor. And for that reason, okay, but seeing as no Ottawa Senators player has worn 65 yet, I'm thinking that the Ottawa Senators might retire Erik Karlsson's number. In the future, if Tkachuk and Stützle stay with the team, I've also read another article that was giving projections about who could be retired in the future, and a lot of the Ottawa Senators fans thought that Tkachuk and Stützle would be having their number retired in the distant future. So I'm saying there's room for growth. Craig Anderson could be on this list as well, but I'm just putting Erik Karlsson again just to show that there will be more numbers retired. So I am posting this picture of the Dodgers Stadium just to give you the example of how these circular number plates are made and how they're positioned throughout the arena. And then the Ottawa Senators ones would be the same. So, again, these are just a couple ideas that I've come up with. You guys might hate them. You guys might love them. But either way, I just think that these would be kind of cool. So a couple things to spitball there. This video is not to be taken too seriously. It's just more, how do we make this a far more fan interactive experience when the Ottawa Senators move into their new building in LeBreton Flats? So that was the whole point of this video. But either way, thank you for tuning in. My name is Keith Freeze. I usually do content on the Kings, so if you feel like checking that out, please come back. And I guess I'll say go Sens go, but go Kings go.